How's everyone today? Great, great. It was great to be here at James Madison. Thanks for having me in your class, professors. And last time I was at James Madison University was 1990, and it just has changed so much. And but I miss just being here on campus for a little bit. We've been here. I miss the idea of being back at on a campus and going through the university program. But I don't miss the exams. The following But so, and I just want to ask a question before I jump into a little bit about me and talk about media and politics. But who has a concern like with financial aid or student aid and getting through school and the funding? Is that an issue here? Yeah. That just by show of hands, I just want to get an idea. Oh, it's an issue here. Yeah. Okay. We're seeing that across the state. By the way, we're meeting with students all around Virginia, small schools to large schools, and we want to hear, what kind of things can be changed in the General Assembly in terms of helping funding and things on that level. So it's very important. We're on the listening tour, and that's part of our campaign. So on that note, let me sort of start. When I got into this race, not because of, and at one point you probably remember, oh, it's part of a TV show, and we're going to film a TV show, and that's the focus is media. Well, that really was inaccurate. We really got in this race because of my past history in terms of politics and government that none of you saw or really were aware of during any of our TV franchises, including Real Housewives. Much of that was taken out of the show. But the reality is, the truth is that 15 years before we even started filming any of the shows at CW, or really getting involved into the media aspects of television and reality TV, we were fighting a war long before that in Virginia where county government versus state government weren't communicating. There were issues, I'll keep the story brief because I know there's going to be some questions. The county was violating state statutes, state codes, and they just weren't communicating. It was a simple issue of communication. That's all it was. But we still had to take the fight to the General Assembly for small businesses and agriculture. And when we started that fight, if you will, to pass legislation, I was told then what I'm being told now, like, oh, you're the underdog, there's no way you're going to win. You've got a 1% chance if you're lucky at getting even a handful of delegates to pass your laws and protecting small businesses and farms in Virginia. Fine, I've been told I'm the underdog, most of my life, and my family was told that too when my dad, came to this country, with literally nothing in his pockets, and started a very successful business and grew into a pretty good empire at Oasis. But we decided to take the fight on because it just wasn't right what was happening to Virginia farmers and small business where they were losing their jobs, losing their farms, and losing their houses. So we took the fight on. And we got through the House nearly unanimous, and we passed in the Senate unanimous. So that bill got adopted, and Governor signed it to protect farms, farm wineries, agriculture enterprises, and allowing them to do what the state code originally intended in terms of the right to farm. There was an issue with the counties. They then said, okay, we understand now that's the state law. Most of the counties have abided by that, except for one. It's actually in my community up in Fauquier County. They still want, they're called the Free State. They still want to, maintain their own laws, make their own regulation. And that happens in government quite a bit. I mean, you see that in politics all the time. And it's usually one side or the other that has an issue, whoever signed the bill. But in this case, it was unanimous. And that's something that's unique about me, is that we worked with both the Republicans and the Democrats, on that bill. And everybody liked the bill because it was good for Virginia, it was good for jobs, it was good for bringing more of an economic impact to the Commonwealth. So that was pretty much my past in terms of working into passing laws for Virginia that no one knows about. We rarely talk about that other than a forum like this when you can actually hear from me firsthand. Oh, do you have any experience, or what did you really do? We only know you from television. Well, that's the real side of me that we fought for a number of years. That bill in Virginia, which was 1435, House Bill 1435, later got adopted by Oregon, Washington, state of California, and New York. So everyone saw this was a good thing for business and creating more jobs. And it made sense. It made sense. Bringing people into Virginia, spending their money here, whether it's a gas station that helps pay for school teachers and pave the roads, or staying at a hotel, B&B, the economic impact on the taxes to the state there, or buying wine or buying apples or pumpkins or what have you in the agricultural community of Virginia. So it was very positive, and really proud about that work that we did. And we continued on the path for 2 more years, making additional amendments, just creating it, tweaking it a little bit more, but sometimes you have to. Because again, localities sometimes don't communicate with the state, say, well, it's a little ambiguous, there's a gray area here, so we'll go in and tweak it here and there. And that's necessary sometimes. I mean, you're seeing that right now with the governor. He has to go back in, and, whether it's a tragedy that you see up in Connecticut or whether it's an issue in agriculture, you'll see that there have to be amendments and there have to be tweaks that be done in legislation to protect Virginia and Virginia citizens in one shape or another. Okay? So that's sort of my past in terms of working with both sides of the parties. Now, we got into this race because of what Ken Cuccinelli was doing. 2 businesses. He sued the University of Virginia, as you know. He has sued a number of small family farms and businesses. It just doesn't make sense, putting them out of business. Literally, people are losing their homes. And here we have an AG who's not only advocating, break the law, go to jail on issues that from the little bit that I spoke with some of you on the hallway he's just such an extremist. So we jumped into that because I saw the same fight that happened to me 15 years ago was happening again. Here he is doing the very same thing, not only to businesses that I'm involved in, but to my community and to other businesses. So we got back in this race for that reason, not for media, not for television. However, when we got into the race, we decided to be very unconventional when it comes to the media, and that is something that is a strength in our campaign. We know our weaknesses. We know I'm the underdog, but a lot of people have said that about former television personalities that have gone to politics, like Jesse Ventura, like Ronald Reagan, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So we're the underdog, but we're using and working with the media as an advantage. So instead of doing the traditional Virginia Pilot, Richmond Times, announcing the campaign, we went to a source that we knew had a larger impact, that had 45 million followers and over 100 million online followers, and that every other news source would pick up the story. So we went to TMZ, which is a division of Warner Brothers and Fox. It's a co-op, and we announced through TMZ. And therefore, when we did that, every TV station and every blogger and every person that's either a Hollywood fan or a Real Housewives fan or a reality TV fan or a political junkie retweeted that message. And by going to TMZ, we created over 500,000 news stories in about 24 hours. So that was a very powerful source for us that we knew we could do because they were already following, if you will, folks from reality TV. It was probably the smartest move we made for the announcement. With that said, we have an advantage when it comes to media. We know that this campaign, we're not going to have to go out and buy as much media that my 2 opponents are. They're probably going to spend $20 million, maybe more each, in media buy. We've already gotten a little over $2 million in free media. So we know we can get free media because of the fact of my history, obviously the White House, the TV show. We can use that to our advantage and generate free media, free publicity that helps the campaign and helps our messaging. So the media is very powerful. We see them as really as a friend. We see them as as a way to amplify our message, and the media sees an advantage for them as well. They need to show, whether it's the reporter at that news source or if it's owned by the network, they need to show numbers of how many click-throughs are going through their website, because that means money. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what the story is, they can show to like Tide or to Dove Soap or anybody else. Here are the numbers. Here are the numbers we're generating in our stories. This is why you want to advertise with us. This is why you want to spend money with us, because we generate the biggest stories heard. So clearly, it works both ways. It's a bilateral relationship. It's not unilateral, and it really has to be a bilateral relationship. On that, I'm going to digress and just tell you an issue that I had with the media. I was first told after the White House. We all know, everybody knows about the White House story, I'm assuming, right? I don't have to talk about that in detail. All right. So, how many know about the second White House, the alleged second White House crashing? Raise your hand. No. See? Okay. So you know about the first.
Crashed the White House twice.
I was accused of that. It was interesting. So this is an important story, especially since this class focuses on media and politics. This is just right up your alley. The first time I was told by NBC, because I was on a contract, you can't speak. You can't tell the truth about the show because we haven't announced the show yet. Even though that was the last week of filming. We're talking about the White House, the first White House experience. That was the last week of filming, but we couldn't say anything because we were under contract, so we had to keep our mouths shut. We're being paid, and we could lose our TV contract, and it's a long-term TV contract, and we signed a contract with NBC or Bravo. So we did, and eventually we got to tell our story. It took a few months, but we got to tell the story. By then, most of the world said, "Well, who cares? The White House party crashing thing, it's a funny thing." By most people, Saturday Night Live ran with it. David Letterman did. Everyone, had a lot of fun with it. But the second White House, this was the 1-year anniversary of the first state dinner, and by coincidence, they had a state dinner for Mexico, for the president of Mexico that same night. Well, we also were throwing a party with our law firm, with our lawyers that represented us, and all the people that are involved around Real Housewives and Bravo. We were driving by the White House, and a Secret Service vehicle pulls a limo over. Okay, we're just going up to K Street. So for those of you familiar with DC, you have to turn left on 17th to go up to K. Okay, that's the best way to go. Really, it's the only way if you're coming from Virginia side. You make that left there. So we got pulled over, and they found out who was in the car. And I said it, I was thinking, well, maybe let's just not say the name. Let's just spell it. Maybe they won't get it. So when the Secret said, well, who's in here? It's Salahi. He writes it up. He said, I'll be right back. So in about 10 minutes, there was like 20, 30 Secret Service vehicles around us. They just closed the street down. I said, are you trying to go to the White House? I'm like, oh, you're kidding me, right? I said, no. Our attorneys came down. I said, no, we're having a party down the street, and that's where we're going. The next day, President Obama was really sending more troops to Afghanistan. He said, well, let's run with that story, so that story's better. Because let's talk about the Salahi's trying to crash and sneak in again when I'm breaking a campaign promise. And that's fine. Campaign promises are broken all the time. We see it at every White House. So they ran with that. And so at that point, I said, I told Rob, I said, I'm not going to sit back on this one. So I called Matt Lauer. I said, I'll address it right now. I said, bring it up to New York and let's just knock it out. Instead of the world saying, okay, he's doing it again, he's at it again, which we never really did the first time. Those of you who really did your research, you would know that it wasn't true. That you don't sneak into the most well-guarded institution in the world. It's impossible. I'm telling you, it's impossible. So I addressed it right away, and that was the smartest thing that we did. Even though everybody said, don't address it, ignore it. No, that's the worst thing you can do, is to ignore something. If you ignore something you hide from the press, it looks bad. It makes you even more guilty. So I wanted to deal with it right away, and I addressed it. And then after that, it was no one heard about it. Just like none of you even knew about that. But it ran throughout the world again that Salahi had crashed the White House second time, but it wasn't true. It wasn't accurate. So this time, we controlled it a little bit better versus being controlled by a network where you're under contract and you have to. But at that point, the show was already out, it was gone, so there's no more secrecy about the TV show. So in my own experience, my message to you is, that, by the way, that could happen to anybody what happened to me. And don't think it can't, because it can. The White House wasn't concerned about somebody sneaking in the White House. That wasn't true. It's about politics. And they used the media to control their own political agenda, which is very smart on their part. Let's run with a social story versus we're breaking the first campaign promise and sending 360,000 troops to Afghanistan. What? Wow, most of you didn't even realize it happened, I bet. It happened, and of course you heard, you see it and you hear it today. Oh, okay, we send more troops to Afghanistan. So, in terms of media and politics, wow, they can work well together. They can be controlled pretty well, especially when you're in the White House and you're the President of the United States. And he certainly did his job in, taking the focus off of him and off the campaign promise to be broken and onto a social media matter. I thought I'd share that with you. So let's talk about the campaign for a few minutes. With that said, we declared our intention to have our theme of our campaign is crash the vote, playing off the White House. Okay, we really want everyone to crash the vote November 5. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, we don't want you to look at the party lines. It essentially says crash the party lines. Okay? Look at the candidate. Look at who the person is. Look who's good for your future and good for the future of Virginia. Look who has experience at already serving Virginians, not serving themselves, not somebody who's using a political office like the AG for his own personal agenda to invade your personal space, especially on women's human rights. You should be frightened about his platform, his views and the statements to the public that if a woman is raped, it's God's will and she has to have the baby. Wow, I don't know anybody who thinks like that. I don't know any Republican who thinks like that. That's scary. Excuse me. And then you have over to my friend Terry, who actually I served on Rock the Vote with. I was on the steering committee for the DNC for many years, and we created a lot of the ideas that were implemented and are still being implemented in Rock the Vote. Rock the Vote went out for a little bit, they were bankruptcy for a while, then they came back. But it was a great program, activating the youth, getting them registered to vote. And Rock the Vote did that. And President Obama did a great job focusing on that and working on the youth. So and that's how I actually met President Obama the first time, was actually through Rock the Vote. So those of you who remember that picture was floating around that there's a conspiracy that me and President Obama, from the professor of the University of Chicago, this is just crazy tabloid nonsense. That was really from a Rock the Vote event, that photo that got leaked out to the press of the Black Eyed Peas. So again, the media, spinning it, mostly bloggers. But what happens, unfortunately, is that anybody who tells a story, whether it's this gentleman here from the local paper, it goes online, the world can see it. It's an international story. Everybody can see that story. It's not just a local story. Anybody can see that story. So, I mean, that media, the world has really changed because of that. I mean, it really has. Any story is really an international story. So you look at every journalist the same. You treat them with the same respect. There's nobody bigger or better. There might be one with more money behind it, that can do certain things, but every story is a powerful story that comes out, whether a blogger, or whether it's a small town paper, or whether it's NBC Universal. So we treat everyone with the same respect on the media, because that message is very powerful. Going back to Crash the Vote, we're excited about this campaign. We're excited the fact that we want people to look at the candidate. We're excited that we're messaging this theme to crash the party lines, because traveling throughout Virginia on our listening tour, which we're doing right now, I'm talking more, but I want to hear from you shortly. We're hearing from everyone saying they're tired of the two-party system. And after this presidential election, people are just sick in their stomachs about what we all went through. And the media bashing, that most of it was untrue on both parts, on both sides. So, thanks so much. You read my mind. So, with that said, the campaign has been messaging ourselves through crashthevote.com, and we're using social media in a huge way. In fact, we've gone into a decision that we'll be the first campaign that does 0 direct mail. We're not going to do 1 direct mail. It'll be the first time ever that Virginia governor's race doesn't use direct mail. I think it's a waste. I mean, I have my own personal issues with it, because I think it's a waste of paper. It's a waste of. I mean, it does 0 net results. It does very little. Why most governors do it and candidates do it, because it generates some media presence for them too, get some messaging done. Well, they may not make money from it, they may not get a contribution, but it gets their message there. I personally throw it all away, you know? When I get that in the mail, it's the first thing that goes trash, 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 trash. I mean, these huge ones this time. They went through like almost these posters in the presidential election. It was terrible. It was work. I can't even imagine what they spent on that. Tens of millions of dollars. Anyways, we're focusing on social media in this campaign. I think our numbers don't lie. You know, with the media that we've had so far, when Public Policy Polling did their first poll, and they did one hypothetical of the three of us, Cuccinelli, Terry McAuliffe, and myself, we came out at 24%. We were surprised with that number too. Then when we went further into studying, we realized, well, some of it's name recognition and some of it's media presence. They see your name somewhere. They don't remember how they saw it or where they saw it, but they see it somewhere. And that's fine. You know, that's part of the game in politics. People may not remember. You know, how do you remember Terry McAuliffe? You know, what did he do? Oh yeah, right. He was on the the Clinton campaign, or he was the chairman of the DNC. Most people, you know, we're finding the front lines don't even know. If you're not political junkie, you don't really know who either one of those are. That's what we're hearing. This is obviously you're a different crew because you're focused into politics and media, so you know all these candidates very well. On the front lines out there, and from the small towns to going to meetings and events, no, the candidates are not well known, not yet, not yet. Once they start spending $20, $30 million fighting each other and killing each other in the media, sure, people will know who they are. But we're hoping what in our plan is, I'm not giving away strategy. Jesse Ventura had a 2% rating all the way till election night, and he won because he let his opponents kill each other. Ronald Reagan didn't win in his first political campaigns. He lost. He lost twice, and then he was voted into a state office position before he became governor. So it's it's fascinating. It's also a learning experience for us. I'm not a career politician like one of my opponents is. I say I'm fiscally conservative as a Republican, but I'm socially moderate as a Democrat. I'm a centrist, as opposed to being an extremist to the left or to the right. What did I miss, Andrea? Andrea Ross worked for President Reagan at the White House. Matt Kreitz worked for George Allen on his campaign. Proud to have both of them. I have a well-informed team, and this part of having a good campaign. You have a balanced team. You have strengths in all these various areas. We did a team building retreat, did a SWOT analysis a couple months ago. We all found our weaknesses, but we also found that we had somebody on the team that had a strength there that filled in that gap of our weakness. So we have a very good, strong team. I'm very proud of our team. And Andrea, what do we miss out here?
Well, I think you probably want to ask these guys about what they want to hear about or talk about, as well as obviously the professors who invited us here.
And that's part of our listening tour. So we're doing something that's again unconventional. We're not going around telling you or dictating which two of my opponents are doing. That's essentially what they're doing. They're not really listening. They're just telling you what the plan's going to be. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your concerns are for Virginia or as students here, at the university. I mean, that's one of the reasons I asked that first question. Student day. Is it jobs? Is it because we actually hear very different things about the issue about jobs. Is anybody who's concerned about jobs when you're leaving the university? There's more here than there were down at a couple other. It's interesting. There's more here than there are in some other parts of Virginia. Sometimes that we hear the type of job. We're hearing a lot of concerns like within the math and science areas that there's a huge gap, out there, especially in Virginia. And there's going to be an issue here for our federally, protecting this country, because we don't have. A lot of this might get outsourced to other countries, and that's horrible. We don't want this being outsourced to China or Russia. We want to keep, our math and science technologies, and especially in defense, here, in this country. That's a big issue for us because 30% of our armed services in the country are in Virginia. So that's scary. What's going to happen, with these budget cuts? A $40 billion budget cut out of the U.S. Army. They don't know where they're going to take that out of training mostly. I mean, I don't know if any of you have look into a future into the military at all. but as a leader of Virginia, as your next governor, I'm concerned about that and how we essentially need to protect that, because 30% of them live here in Virginia, of old U.S. Armed Services. That's a concern. That's a real concern. So let me hear from you. I'd like to hear, as part of our listening tour. Yes?
You talk about, working on social media and everything, that your focus is going to be on social media. And you also work on Rock the Vote, obviously going around different universities, and also, do you think you're focusing on the young vote then? And do you think that media kind of is like a young man's game?
There's no question we are focusing on the youth, and we're focusing on minorities. We're focusing on areas that my opponents are not, and that I also don't want to leave anybody ignored. And that's been me from long before getting involved in this race. I was concerned about whether you were a small business in Virginia or whether you're the biggest winery in Virginia. I didn't care. I didn't care if you were Greek or if you were Italian. It didn't matter. So no one's being ignored, and that is a big focus for us. I'm the first governor candidate ever to have a website available in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking voters. So, and it's still, I was expecting, my opponents would have followed, but they haven't followed. I thought they would have followed by now, and maybe they will later. I mean, we see they're stealing a few things from us here and there in terms of our, some of our language, and that's flattering. That's great. It's nice to see them doing that. Both of them have been doing it. I'm surprised. They're supposed to be the better experts, right? Supposedly. I'm not too sure about that. But yeah, social media is huge. That's another place where I think the numbers don't lie. The number of retweets. When we start when we're out there sending a Twitter message, whether it's someplace where we're traveled, which we'll do, of course, being down here at JMU, being down here, whether it gets retweeted or whether it gets viewed or whether we're getting more followers, I think that says a lot. I wish Twitter had some, better statistics, like exactly where are they in Virginia. I'd like to know those numbers. I would even pay for that for Twitter. I'd like to know those numbers. That's more powerful to me than direct mail. I mean, those numbers don't lie. If they're following you, then I'm sure there's a percentage of that are my enemies, or my perceived enemies, and that's great. I'm following them too. I'm following Cuccinelli. I'm following. He doesn't have a lot to say when he says it. It's just horrible. He's violating his own laws. He wants you to go to jail. He wants you to break the law. I mean, it's crazy. He's your AG. He's your top cop. He's not supposed to advocate sending you to jail.
I'm kind of curious, how many of you use Twitter regularly or are on Facebook more than once a day, kind of thing?
Everyone loves it. Okay, who thinks Twitter's more powerful than Facebook in terms of messaging? Yeah, I agree. You don't agree? Say it, tell us why.
Well, with Facebook, I mean, you have a range of, excuse me, I don't want to say, you have a range of people, like my little brother's on Facebook versus Twitter. For me, I have a Twitter, but I haven't checked in the past 6 months. So, and I mean, I know a lot of people who have a Twitter, but half the time when on Twitter, every time I do check it, it's something stupid. So after a while, I just kind of ignored it. And Facebook tends to be more, I guess, accessible. I mean, they're equally accessible, but Facebook pops on my phone. So can Twitter.
Did you migrate your Twitter with your Facebook? So when you message, they go to each? You didn't?
Mm-mm.
How many of you do that? How many of you migrated your Twitter and Facebook so they message each other? Really? Oh. Did you know you could do that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Why do you choose not? I'm just curious. Why do you choose not to?
It's just more acceptable to update your Twitter more often than it is your Facebook.
All right.
I think Twitter's a little bit better as a tool because it's more timely. You have more instant access to people. I think people check it more often because you are more socially able to update it more often. And then I think Facebook is just like a good hub of where you meet people and you start to build like a slow network where you have more like long-term relationship, keep up with people, whatever. And then if you make events, you're able to more include en masse, invite people. And I think that's where the value of Facebook's got to fall.
Okay. Right. Yes.
I kind of disagree though about his views on Twitter, because if you're following a lot of people, then you're getting a ton of like updates, and as far as like from a campaign perspective, you're gonna get washed out really quickly if you're just using Twitter. It updates way too quickly.
Yeah, especially if you are following a lot of people. Because
It comes
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah. Good point. Good point. I mean, I use them both. We see our numbers going up on each of them. We saw a dramatic increase recently after we did a very big email blast out to all our fan supporters. And we don't do that too often. We do it maybe once a month. We do it usually by industry or by people that we know. Either they're wine lovers or they're people that knew me from the political side, work in the General Assembly, whatever it be. But we know that when we email them, if they're not giving a $5 contribution, they're following or they're going to Facebook, and we give either one of those options. So, you know, with those numbers that we see, where we are pretty much 10 times higher than both of my opponents, and we're hearing the same thing in Virginia, so it keeps us motivated. We love hearing, you know, the news that we hear from Virginians that, you know, they like an alternative candidate because. We were even going to do a viral. I'd like to hear from you guys. We were going to do a sort of a crazy viral video. We announced a contest on our website of doing it, you know, about the lesser of the three evils. We were going to do something sort of, okay, we're all bad. You know, I would be the speak no evil, you know, because I took the Fifth of Congress. Cuccinelli is the see no evil because he has an issue with nudity and even in our museums in Virginia. And then Terry McAuliffe would be the last. So we were going to do a fun video. Viral video that we were going to send out. What do you think about these kind of like viral videos that are these political ones that, you know, make fun of the candidates and sometimes you make fun of yourself? What do you guys think about that? Yeah? Brings it down to earth, doesn't it? Yeah. If you can make fun of yourself, and I've learned to do that ever since the White House, and then it's okay, you know? I mean, I admit, when Saturday Night Live told me that they were going to, you know, they couldn't get us on, but they had to use us, you know, in a skit, I thought it was great. Like, it's funny, and it was one of their best skits that they've done, even to this day. I mean, it's still one of the most viewed skits. I mean, Yes?
Do you think because of those incidents and because you've been in the spotlight in kind of that kind of situation, that you are a little bit more bulletproof to criticism than you would be? You do kind of have an extra ability to laugh at yourself?
That's a really good question, and the answer is there's no question that I've been vetted. I mean, we joke around. I've had every three-letter agency investigate me, from the FBI to CIA to, you know, we joke around NBC being one of those three-letter agencies. And you know everything about me. There's nothing that's not either been told on the TV show or through the media. My opponents can't say that. They're just beginning. You know, Terry just did a FOIA request on all his emails since
On all of
Ken Cuccinelli's emails. You know, he's accusing him of using campaign money. You know, while he's the first AG in 30 years that's keeping his position as the AG and not stepping down, which is wrong. He really needs to step down. Even the current governor said that. Terry's right. He should be stepping down. I agree with him on that. But yeah, there's, you know, answering that. My skin is very thick. You know, ever since that happened. And nothing phases me, no matter, you know, we don't, surprisingly, we expect to hear things like going down, especially southwest parts of Virginia, oh, shame on you for crashing the White House. You know, we haven't heard that because most people know there's a lot more to the story that was really never told. You know, had I really done that, I would have gone to jail. You know, had anyone really snuck into the White House, you should be arrested. But that wasn't, you know, the case, and that was the truth, and they know that. So it made my skin thicker, and being transparent is a big asset for this campaign. Because I'm done. You can bring up all news, but that's going to help my campaign. You bring up all news. If he says something to the media and puts me back in the media, that's great. Then I get to have a rebuttal. Because if he does that, remember there's a law. I mean, I get equal time. Okay. As a political candidate for governor of Virginia, that is a law. However, like my opponent tried to call Access Hollywood when I spoke to Billy Bush in a recent interview. He said, "Well, I want equal time." I said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Cuccinelli. You have to be a television personality or a celebrity. You're not. So we have this advantage where we got the media side. You know, We get to enjoy both sides of that, if you will. So that's going to help us. I mean, I'm the first one to say we are privileged to get millions of dollars worth of free press. We're lucky to have that, and that's a big asset for the campaign. We've gotten more press now than my two other candidates. I mean, the NBC piece you saw in Charlottesville a few weeks ago. Right, right now, according to a poll that they did, I'm the only candidate that people know the name. That's part of her listening to her. I'm actually getting out there and talking to you. I want to listen and I want to hear from you, and that's why we're here today. What else? Yeah.
Sorry. You say like the tabloids and stuff have taken pictures from that event. Your name has been mixed out there in a lot of different scenarios, but you still use TMZ to your advantage. Do you think there's any kind of conflict there as far as your views on how that media works or anything like that? Because it seems like, it's good for this reason, but bad for that reason.
Yeah, well, you don't, as you know, you don't control editorial. And TMZ always likes to be snarky and silly, and they'll still spin the message. That doesn't matter. Let them spin it that way. It's fun. But the serious news agencies will then jump in, take the story, run with it, and then do their own piece. And then once they investigate and they really look at the candidates, in my case, appointed by 3 different governors, Republican and Democrats, Gilmore, Kane and Warner. You can't, there's nothing you can do but then tell that story, and then tell the facts and tell the truth about what I've done in the past. So I think it's a bilateral relationship. They're going to write a story no matter what. So why not cooperate with them, talk to them, as opposed to ignoring them? May as well. I mean that second White House experience. I mean, I thought I was damn good in media before with the Virginia Wine Tourism, the Tourism Authority. Boy, but after that second experience with the White House, that just screamed volumes about how we need to handle and work with the press and make it bilateral and not hide from it, not be scared from it. I keep telling Matt, that George Allen snafu, that was just handled so. If it was me, I would have handled it a different way. I mean, I would have turned it into something funny or joke. I would have gone on camera with him. I would have I would have brought him up or something. Just handled badly. The marketing behind that media relations was a disaster. They should have handled that completely different, and it could have changed the guy's life if he did handle it differently. But they're not used to that. These career politicians don't understand that. They don't have that experience going through this, if you will, this madness of the press that clearly I have gone through and have experienced. Yeah. Yes.
So you have your website, crashtheroad.com. What other factors are you using to, I guess, dilute your role as a celebrity and highlight your role as a politician?
Besides the website?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're using the website. We're using the social media platforms. The most powerful for us, besides those, is really the tour. Getting on the road, putting on, honestly, 10, 15,000 miles, a month on driving around Virginia. That's really the most powerful. Talking to you here today, talking to the students later for lunch, talking to another class later this afternoon, just being on the road and being seen and letting them find out who you really are. That this is not a TV stunt. I still get that. So, oh, you're doing this for a reality TV show. We didn't get the new show until I had announced. I mean, did you guys even know there's a new show? So we're not focusing on that. But there's a new show that's following us and filming. They're not here today. But it is part of it. But it won't be aired till after the elections. But it's going to be the first time a documentary about a governor candidate from soup to nuts, from the very beginning of his announcement to win or lose on November 5, or if I don't make the signatures. Whatever happens, happens. And we have plans B and C. Trust me, you have to have that when you're running for office. But that's the most powerful for us is listening.
You'll all sign to get them on the ballot before you leave.
Yeah, if you don't mind, before I leave today, if you don't mind signing that would be great. We have to collect 10,000, but my opponents don't. They do not. And that's the way that party system works. It's very geared for just a party system. They don't have to collect the signatures at all.
That's why Bill Bowling dropped out.
Yeah, and that's really, the truth is that's why he did drop out. Now, if he thinks he can get them, it'll be a race to get him, because then you'll have to collect them as an independent. You can't have collected anything prior to that as a Republican.
Sorry. It seems that Bowling and you have similar goals. If not to, I don't know what his plans are right now, but if not to be governor, then to beat Cuccinelli. Can you explain in particular why Cuccinelli is so dangerous, do you think, as a possible governor or as Attorney General?
Yeah. Well, you said it. I didn't have to say it for you. He is dangerous. He's dangerous for Virginians and for the future of the Commonwealth, and in many areas. Mr. Cuccinelli wants to do things that I just don't agree with. And I'm sorry to say it, but there's no nice way to say it. But his probing issues, right? That I don't have to say it. You know about that. That's just. As women, you should be just disgusted by that. He's trying to legislate your body. That's just wrong. I think that's a big social issue, if you will. He is the biggest litigator in Virginia, and he's spending all of your money litigating issues for his own personal agenda, not for Virginians. Do a poll in your own class, or you probably have already done one, about anything that he's litigated. It's mostly been for his own personal agenda, his own views, or for his extremist Tea Party views. It's not about the Commonwealth. It hasn't been. Those are probably the two biggest hot topics there. Yeah.
I was gonna say is Bill Bowling last week said to watch out for March 14th, and he told reporters to keep that date. How would you feel that you would fare in essentially a four-way race?
I think it'd be great. It would be so exciting if Bill Bowling does come in. I want him to come in. I want to see what the next poll comes out for public policy. If there is four of us on the ballot, and it would be at first, by the way, be at first. We've done our own numbers in house. If he does come in, he's gonna steal mostly from just Cuccinelli. He's gonna, not too much on the other side. Very little. Where I'm, if you will, I'm getting voters from both sides because of my past of working with the DNC, and also my past working with Republicans, where he's traditionally been just a Republican vote. So he'll steal 25% of Cuccinelli's votes. If he does that, it's really going to just be between Terry and I, and in theory it could be a win by 1%. It could be a 25, 25, 25, 25, because we're already at 24 based on the three of us. So it'll be interesting if we get this. We could win by 1%, and focusing on whether it be minorities or students. Minorities is at 18% of the vote. If we can focus on that. And do what we do best in that area, and that we've done with Rock the Vote and activating the youth, then we've got the race. Yes?
So if you're elected governor, and you could only do one concrete thing while you're in office, what would that be?
If I could just do one thing, it would bring more businesses to Virginia to create more jobs. Because when you create more jobs, you're putting infrastructure here. It's not just short-term, it's long-term. In fact, we can bring a plant here, or a car manufacturing company, or aircraft engineering company and build more engines, like we did with Rolls-Royce. That would be my biggest focus. That's just positive. That gets you jobs. That creates an economic impact to all of Virginia, and it's great for the General Assembly. We get an increase in tax base there. So, and would I give a tax incentive? To bring somebody in? You bet. I'll give a short-term tax incentive. So they're here for a lifetime. Of course, if they put in a factory here, they're not going to leave. Yeah, I would definitely do that. I think Governor McDonald's done a good job on some of that. I think we can do a lot more in private-public partnerships, and I think there's a lot of creativity there that we can do to bring in more revenue to Virginia too. A lot of things that I did on the Tourism Authority under two governors. Yes.
You mentioned some television politicians made that transition. Reagan and Ventura. There's Al Franken now.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is about Minnesota, particularly getting a couple there. I'm curious, do you see this as a growing trend As we think about, particularly, Ventura ran as a third party, and he won by only a couple percent.
Yeah.
In person race.
But he wasn't expecting it. Yeah.
Exactly right. Is this? Do you think this is a growing trend that you're part of particularly outsiders running as independents, coming from kind of a media celebrity status?
I do. I think it's a growing trend. I'll tell you why, because I'm also hearing that from even my own news source agencies. When they're telling me, hey, this person might be announcing, or this person announced. When People Magazine or Us Weekly came out, Kim Kardashian, after I announced, was saying she was going to run for mayor of her town. And so, so there's a page of like Kim and I, the same thing. These are what these reality TV folks are moving into an area that maybe they really loved. Maybe there's something we didn't know. I don't know. Kim hasn't experienced at all. I mean, most people didn't know I had any experience there. But I think it is a growing trend. I think you're going to see a lot more of it too. You bet. Yeah. I think it's just about getting involved. You should want to be. You would want to have more people on the ballot. You want to have more choices. You don't want to make it just a two-party system. When a two-party system, by the way, is a closed-room deal. Who becomes a nominee? And it's a party issue. It's a good old boy network, and that's what it is. Make no mistake of it. That's exactly what it is. So you should want to have more people on the ballot. You should have a choice. Who's next?
Can you explain more about your role that you had in that, you talked about the 90s and that bill that you passed?
Yeah.
What was your position or role in passing that?
Yeah, I'll tell you both. So my view was, my view of why I got involved was less government is more. And having government tell my business, and it wasn't just me, it was all, at that time, all the farm agritourism enterprises in my county. How many people can come? My hours. They wanted to tax me, an additional tax. Just was a clear violation of Virginia Code 4.1-128. Look up that code. 4.1-128 is very clear. It's a state law. It says no county or town shall tax or control or legislate any form of their business. It's very clear. It's a silver bullet in my view. But because it was in the ABC code, 4.1 is in ABC, the county said, well, it's not in the county code. It's in the ABC code. Okay. It's just ridiculous to create another piece of legislation, pass another law, even though it's in the code of Virginia, and basically mirror it and move it over to the county code. So when we had to do that, because my family farm was on the line, my family was being torn apart. It was just a big issue. So I got involved because too much government was killing our business. They're trying to tell me how many people could come to the winery. They're trying to tell me my hours of operation. I'm already governed. We're the most regulated business in the world, or wineries. We're governed already by the Virginia ABC, OSHA, the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms. Good God, the county board of supervisors, they should be talking to the state to say, hold on, are we doubling our efforts here? And they're trying to tax us? Well, the ABC then said, no. They had to go speak, to the county, like, you're stepping on our toes, trying to tax these wineries. That's our money. So then there's a war in Virginia going on. This could have been resolved, and what I would do as governor, this could have been resolved by doing one simple thing. The governor and a few members of the cabinet need to travel to every county and every jurisdiction and just explain to them, these are things that are state law that are good for Virginia that we want to see succeed because it makes us money. Don't destroy it and therefore destroy jobs. Wow. You would think it's simple and you would think that nobody would do that, but they did that. There's an issue that's still ongoing, even though we've tweaked and fixed these laws. We have another bill called the Bonita bill that's going through the General Assembly that's being passed. It's gone over to the other side during switchover week. And it addresses now just farmers that are not involved with any other regulatory agencies controlling them. So I hope I answered your question. Yeah. Who else? Yes, sir.
How What's your views on the roles of the state assembly and public higher ed? How would you see about fixing the way that the state gives us money for scholarships and things like that?
Yeah.
Can I jump in on one thing on this? I think this is something that we really want to hear from you guys on, like your personal experiences, and if you don't mind, anybody who has an interest in letting us know, you know, what experiences, good or bad, what you like, what you don't like about the way things are going now, on his Facebook or, you know, anything like that, just send us a message, post it, whatever, because we do want to hear from you.
Yeah.
You guys are in the front lines on this.
And the timing is really good right now because between now and May, we're going to eventually be releasing a plan, a book plan, basically our entire agenda, and education is going to be a big part of it because we're hearing it. We're hearing it from, that's one of the first questions I asked this morning, you know, about that concern. So we know it's a serious concern among students, and we don't want you leaving a university and maybe not even having a job, and you're still trying to pay a debt. There's creative ways that we can probably bring in more money and some of the ideas and plans that we're going to be announcing. Very creative things that you know, that I've either authored or I started, or I'm going to implement some new plans into creating new economic revenue for Virginia. Some of it's already being started. Like, for example, it relates, but I just need to tell this quick story. When I was on the it was Tim Kaine's board at that time of the Tourism Authority. There was a budget shortfall, and you have to have a required balanced budget, and they had to close every Virginia rest stop. Wow, that was basically, you may as well put a sign on "Welcome to Virginia, we're out of business." I mean, it was the first thing you saw when you drove into Virginia, and our rest areas are boarded up, as if, you know, like the state's gone bankrupt. You know, closed signs. Wow, just a wrong image for Virginia. So a lot of things we did on the Tourism Authority initiatives, we did private and public partnerships with government money. So we get money from our state budget. And we also work with partnerships like with Land Rover, Geico, you know, all these different organizations, insurance companies, and whatever, that are involved in advertising or partnering with us because they benefit from it in some form or another, as being a tourism partner, business partner in Virginia. So we did some partnerships. So you'll see sometimes some of these they're now reopened. Governor Bob McDonnell took some of the plans that we did on the Tourism Authority, reopened them, but with private partnerships as well. Some state money and also private partnerships. So you see some sponsored by like ExxonMobil or car insurance companies. You'll see a little sign out there. It was a great example of private-public partnerships that we can do a lot more of. Look, bless you. Basically, Virginia, I mean, we're here, we're in business. We're a state business. Virginia is the same thing. You need to look at us like any other business. We need to have partners. We need to take our small little bit amount of money we get, and we need to make that grow. It's like Survivor. You've got to outplay, and outwit the other states. You really do. You really do. You got to fight for your state. You got to be really creative. So we got to do creative things like that. You know, our budget, for example, is a tenth of West Virginia. I mean, West Virginia's budget for tourism and small business is $49 million. Ours is 3.1 in Virginia. It's scary.
You know why, too.
Yeah.
Gambling.
Yeah. Which, I'm just going to say it. I mean, we're going to announce it later, but we get asked these questions because, you know, 7 passed in Maryland, okay, which is great. I was for it. But on the other side of that, we have nearly $800 million leaving the state of Virginia every year. $800 million. Can you imagine what would that do for education if I could keep that $800 million in here and maybe make that grow by 10? If we did some clever partnerships with MGM down in certain tourism areas, maybe by Virginia Beach or some other communities where there's a lot of tourism, and we hear already Virginians want it, and create more jobs, and we can use some of that profit for education. So that's just one small example. Well, how would you feel about that if we did that?
Well, I am familiar with 7 in Maryland, and they played a little bit of financial games up there because not a lot. They said it was going to be all for education, and there's very little of it actually is. And so I would not be in support of that. I would be in support of a huge majority of that going towards education because
But so if we did it, we really did it for education versus the monkey game we
Yeah,
played.
I would
Yeah.
be for it. I mean, I wouldn't gamble, but I mean, if
Yeah.
someone else wants to, that's their prerogative.
Have you ever gone to Las Vegas?
No, I have not.
Never. Have you ever gone to West Virginia, Charleston? No? I mean, has anybody ever gone to Las Vegas and not gambled? I mean, you've gone to Las Vegas and not gambled? Yeah. Okay, I mean, I've gone to Las Vegas and I don't gamble, but I go because it's fun, the shows, it's
Yeah,
exciting.
That's
you know?
not my thing, but
Yeah.
I just know Matt and I work in the student government, and we are under a lot of we do a lot of research into the financial situation at JMU because we're losing money from the state, but we're also trying to make sure that we're not coming out with a massive amount of debt, and so it's a big issue on campus. A lot of students are feeling the pressure of coming out in an economy where we're not going to get a job, and yet federally we're getting less help, and state-wise we're getting less help too. So I'm just curious to see what you guys are thinking. I'm not really sure what the plan is as of right now because budgets are budgets. You got to cut from somewhere else, but just curious to see if you had some sort of plan.
We are fortunately out of time.
We're out of time.
Everyone be
Okay.